All right, Dalton, no surprises as to who our number one edge defender in college football is. Not only was he the number one edge on our list, he was the number one overall pick in our way too early 2025 NFL mock draft. And that is, of course, James Pearce Jr., JPJ from Tennessee. Dalton, why is he the best edge in college football, and why was he the number one overall pick in our way too early mock draft?
So the numbers tell you he's the best edge player returning, right? He had the third best pass rush grade in the country last year, second in true pass rush grade, third in win rate, 13 sacks was sixth most in the country, 52 pressures, only trailed Dallas Turner and Chris Braswell in the SEC, who were two top 50 picks in the draft. He's a freak. And to top it off, a pick six against Iowa in Tennessee's bowl game where he hit 23 miles an hour on the return, which is just disgusting. The early comp for me, maybe there's some other ones as we get more into it this year, the early comp for me is freakier Dallas Turner. Just the sheer athleticism of this guy is what you dream of when you're looking at edge players. And even though he's a little lighter, hovering around 240 pounds, just speed kills at any position. But at defensive end or outside linebacker, edge player, whatever, lately, it's becoming more of a premium when you're trying to get to these quarterbacks. And Pierce's level of athleticism and his potential, along with the insane production, basically top 5 or 6 in every metric that we have as a pass rusher last year, just a freak of nature, honestly. Like, just everything you want in a speed rusher. As a stand-up guy, he could probably put his hand in the dirt and do it that way too. He's just a freak.
Dude, it's hard to describe him and how freaky of an athlete he is. So you mentioned that play against Iowa where he hit 23 miles an hour according to GPS tracking. That was among the 15 fastest top speeds in the country, regardless of position. So we're talking receivers, we're talking running backs, we're talking cornerbacks. He was among the 15 fastest players in the country in terms of top speed as an edge defender, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think it's out of the realm possibility this guy runs in the 4.3s at the NFL Combine. I don't think it's that ridiculous.
That top speed, I believe, is the same as Ollie Gordon.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is stupid. That just doesn't even register in my head that a D lineman could do that. And I know 240. I think Gordon weighs 210 or 215. He's not that much bigger, but still, that's freakish. That you're basically talking about. He's as fast as the best running back in the country.
Dalton, I'm not saying he's as fast as this guy, so don't put words in my mouth. Xavier Worthy's top speed last year is 21.9 miles per hour. James Pearce Jr. on a football field ran faster than Xavier Worthy did last year. That is Xavier Worthy just broke the freaking 40-yard dash record, man. Like, what are we talking about here, man? It makes no sense, this guy. This guy makes absolutely no sense as a human being, as an athlete, man. It's ridiculous. And then you mentioned the athleticism alone would be enough for us to put him in, like, the top 5 of this list. Even if he was, like, a bad football player, be like, dude, but look at this guy. Like, look at how freaky he is. He's got the production. He was, like I said, 3rd in the country in pressure rate, 3rd in the country in pass rushing grade as well. And we'll get into the negatives. But I want to mention some positives, too. The scariest part about those numbers, he's winning only off athleticism. He doesn't really have too many moves in his bag already either. So I think that's a scary part for him as a prospect as well. Is like, man, he's this productive, and he's only winning off athleticism. Imagine how good he'll be when he starts developing more moves. That I think is a huge, huge positive in his game, even though it kind of is a negative in other ways as well. But what are the negatives, Dawn? What that being one of them, and what are some of the other negatives that you see in Pierce's game right now?
I think there may be, like there was with Dallas Turner this year, just questions about his weight and his build. If he stays in the 240s, as far as like, okay, could teams run right at him and really just pound him and get physical with him? But no, I think that's exactly it in all facets, man. It's like he's this good, and the polish isn't even anywhere near like an A or an A+ level, right? Where you're talking about he comes out of his stance sometimes a little bit high, or like the moves are inconsistent. Like he's shown a counter inside move, which would work great off of the speed rush, but you're right. He's just winning right now on freakish talent. Like this year is going to be so interesting for him, because if he added that polish in the offseason or through spring ball or coming up in August, you could be talking about a guy like we saw Leatu Latu and the records he was setting with his grades last year. You could be talking about getting up in that category, because he's already the best returning pass rusher in the country, and he's not even fully it's almost like he's not even fully ready to be that yet, but he already is. So the talent alone would get it. Like, to me, as he is right this minute, without that polish, he's as good as Dallas Turner right now. And Dallas Turner was it 17th overall or wherever it was? 18th. That's the floor. Now you're talking about adding the polish. Yeah, I the number one pick thing based on the development that could happen, because we see guys, right? They're really good, but they're maxed out. He's nowhere near maxed out, especially with his technique.
He feels like Deion Walker in a lot of areas, man. It's like, dude, Deion's this productive already. It's like he's got so much where he can get better at. And it's like the same thing with James Pearce Jr., man. So that, I think, that's a big thing. And not only is he this productive winning off athleticism, he's doing it in the SEC. He's not doing it in, a Conference USA or something like that, man, where you can win off athleticism. He's doing it at a level where he's beating legit NFL players at offensive line. That's terrifying. As a true sophomore, too. Not like he's heading into a senior year. As a true sophomore, he was doing that. The one thing I will say that I think is actually a negative in this game, besides the polish, obviously, is a strength. It's a double-edged sword with the polish. The one negative in this game right now is just not a very good run defender because he's not that big. He can't set the edge in the run game. He doesn't even make that many tackles for loss either that you would expect for a guy who's that athletic. So as a run defender, there's a lot to get better at right now. But he is by far the best pass rusher in college football. I actually, Dalton, Theo Ash, who does a great job breaking down the game of football on TikTok and stuff like that, he watched James Pearce Jr., and he said that he doesn't think he can go number one overall because of his size. He's like, you just don't see 240 edge defenders going that high. You got to be bigger, like a freak like Myles Garrett or Trayvon Walker, for example. Do you agree with that? Do you think he's just not big enough to be a number one overall pick candidate, or do you think it just doesn't matter because of how athletic he is?
You would like a few more pounds. I think if he came in somewhere closer to, like, say, like a Micah Parsons, right, where he was closer to, if he kept that athleticism at like 255, let's say, something like, he's never going to be huge. He's not going to be 270. That's not a thing.
No.
But if he kept that in the 250s, 10 to 15 more pounds somewhere in there, I think you'd be talking, because honestly, it depends on the defense sometimes. But I think when you're talking about great edge rushers, they can be up or down, right? Like Myles Garrett's always in a 3-point stance, but TJ Watt is always in a 2-point stance, and those are the two best. So, like, you have a set of guys. I think there's great pass rushers, spectacular. Lawrence Taylor is probably the best pass rusher ever. He was in a 2-point stance, right? Or you're talking about Micah Parsons or TJ Watt or Trey Hendrickson. Like, all of these guys rush from a 2-point stance. So I think to think that only a classic defensive end could go number one overall, he has to be 270 and he has to look like Myles Garrett. Like, if you think this guy can be the best pass rusher in football, then take him number one. Like, why wouldn't I don't know, let's just say a team like Denver, or if the Carolina Panthers, are struggling and they're the number one pick again this year. Like, why wouldn't you take that? That we've seen it with Parsons, we've seen it with TJ Watt. It doesn't matter what stance he's coming from. If he's great, he's great. Like, and again, in the 250s would probably be better. 240 would be a hard sell if he weighed in at the combine at 240. But, like, pass rush is king, and this guy's the best.
Yeah, and even look, he's 2 inches taller than Micah Parsons, but Parsons is 245. He's only 3 pounds heavier than James Pearce Jr. And you look back, Micah Parsons would be worthy of being a number one overall pick in a draft.
He's on his way to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah,
like, this is what we're talking about. Parsons is.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and guys like Nick Bosa. Yeah, I kind of understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, it's like, dude, just if you're that good, I don't even think it really. If you get around 245, 250, I think that's enough. If you remain that good and no quarterbacks really stand out, yeah, he could absolutely be the number one overall pick, especially to a team like Carolina, who just lost Brian Burns, a freaky athlete at edge defender, and they might be picking number one again next year. Yeah, I think that is definitely a candidate to go number one overall. There's a lot of teams that could use a James Pearce Jr. on their team. So James Pearce Jr., let us know in the comments below whether or not you think he is the best edge defender in college football, and whether or not you think he actually has a chance to be the number one overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. That's what we got for James Pearce Jr. Make sure you subscribe to the channel for more videos previewing college football as you head to the start of the 2024 season.